All right, folks, welcome on how to file the 941 Form 941. As you can see, it is the employer's quarterly federal tax return, and so we're going to walk through how to fill this information out correctly with the now that you have the knowledge of who tax law actually applies to, and that if you are not earning any money from the government, then your income is not taxable, and therefore you do not need to file these forms. But what we're going to do is we're going to file this quarter's form so that you can get a return of what the taxes that you've paid thus far this quarter this year, and that way, and then you won't file anything else other than the amendments, which we're going to show you how to do a little bit later, so that you can get the money the IRS still has that's yours. You can get that money back from them. Okay, so we're going to go through and file it. But before we go on to filling out this information, I want to show you real quick using the tax law, the tax code, and the taxable actual tax form that this does not apply to you. Even if you think you're a small business owner, so you're an employer, because here's the thing with the IRS, there are over 100 words that have custom definitions. Now you can see some on the screen, several of the words are highlighted yellow, and that is because each one of those words has a custom definition or a very specific context. And the reality is the whole form has a custom um not custom definition, it has a very specific application, which is again, if your income does not come from the federal, or I'm sorry, from any kind from government source at any level, then your income is not taxable according to the Constitution and to the tax code, so it doesn't apply to you. But again, this is going to be your last one, so you can get your returns from the quarter that you just did, and then you can amend the previous quarters and the previous up to 3 years. And so here you so let's look at employers real quick. We're going to talk about the definitions real quick. I'm going to show you three real quick definitions. Employer, okay? Now, to me and you, it's if we just read this one here, this is, as you can see here, it's on the Cornell Law University website. They've digitized the entire tax code, and so now it's available online for anybody to study if you decide to go, if you want to go down that route. But we were kind of giving you the summary and the direct application of it, so you can save time and just get your money back as quickly as possible versus having to learn a whole bunch of new stuff before doing that. Okay, so employer, you and I, let's just read what it says here. It says means the person for whom an individual performs or performed any service of whatever nature as the employee of such person, right? So you and I, that sounds normal. That sounds like a regular definition. Doesn't sound custom at all, right? Outside of the tax law and tax code, in a normal conversation like we're having now, the word employer means exactly this. Somebody who hires someone else to work for them. But the thing with this, the reason this has a custom definition is because this definition, the whole premise on foundation of this definition is this word employee. So if you didn't know that this word employee has a custom definition, you wouldn't know that that's why the word employer has a custom definition. Now let's take a look at what the definition for employee is when it comes to everything tax related. The definition of employee is includes, and by the way, in the tax code and law, when you see the word includes, the whatever follows it that are examples of of the scale or the category of scope to which that law can be applied to, limits it to just that category of items. So anything outside of that, everything outside of that is exclusive or excluded. So it says includes an officer, employee, or elected official of the United States, a state, or any political subdivision thereof, or the District of Columbia, or any agency, instrumentality, or anyone or foregoing. The term employee also includes an officer of a corporation, which also that word corporation is specifically to a corporation that is government owned. But now let's come back to what we were talking about with the as far as employee. It says an officer, an employee, or elected official of the United States. Now the interesting thing is that United States there actually means District of Columbia, and District of Columbia actually isn't even talking about the United States government or even the nation of the United States. It's talking about the United States of America, the corporation, which is a whole thing for another topic for another video. Um, but just understand that even though it says United States, a state, or any political subdivision thereof, or the District of Columbia, it all means the same thing, which is District of Columbia, which represents the government, right? So again, employee for tax purposes includes an officer, employee, or elected official of the United States government or public office. Okay, so keep that in mind. So if the employee is someone who works for the government, right, then that would mean that by default, employer would mean the government, right? So now let's go back to our form here. So if the term employer means government, that means this here actually says means government's quarterly federal tax return. Are you the government? I don't believe so. And so that's why this the first reason. This is a couple examples why this doesn't apply to you. And then further down the line, we're going to talk about another definition, which is a very key core word that has a custom definition, which on which the tax law applies. And so we're going to go about. You put your EIN number here, which even though again you're not the government, so you don't actually have an EIN number, but the one you have, you can put that in there. Fill this information out as you normally would because this is how they're going to identify you in the system. So you put your EIN there, you put your name here, you put the trade name here, which by the way, the word trade also and the word business actually means the performance of the functions of public office. This is a FYI. So you fill that information in, your name, the address, etc. Right? And then you select the quarter for which you are filing, right? And so you're scrolling down here a little bit. You'll see here it says again, part one, answer these questions for this quarter. Employers, oh, wait a minute. Employers, that means the government. So government okay, so are you the government? Nope, doesn't apply. Okay, right. So part one does not apply, just off the instructions part. Now, let's take a look at this word wages, which is one of the foundational words on which the tax law depends for its enforcement and application. Let's take a look now and see what the word wages means. As we can see here, the term wages means all remuneration, in other words, pay, or other than fees paid to a public official. Now, keep this in mind so you can see how tricky this is. It says, other than fees paid to a public official for services performed by an employee for his employer. Again, for services performed by a government worker, government employee, office official, or elected official. Right? So that does not mean you. Again, employer is the government. So wages is the pay in exchange for services performed by government employees or public office officials. So are you any of that? No. So you don't have wages, right? As according to the tax law. So from here forward, it's going to be very simple. I know we kind of took a little bit there, but that's because I wanted to make sure clear. If you didn't have that information, you'd be confused or seriously doubting why I'm going to tell you to put what goes following, right? That from here forward. So again, since this doesn't actually apply to you, everything that comes in here, this is all well. What you're going to do here, number of employees. Again, you don't have employees because you're not the government, so that's going to be zero. Wages, tips, and other compensations. Now, here again, this is going to be zero because according to the tax law, wages, and again, when it has a sequence of this, like wages, tips, and other compensation, they are limited in scope to the definition of what the initial one is, which means that tips and other compensation have to be for work that comes from for related to government work or as a government employee, right? So again, zero. Federal income tax withheld from wages and tips, and it said, now here's this part. Now if you've already paid taxes this quarter, then everything you've paid in taxes this quarter is what you're going to put here. And again, that's federal, that's state, that's local, that's regional, that's Social Security, that's Medicare, that's they even have something on there called an excise tax, which isn't actually an excise tax. That tax you can get back. So anything that is on there that's them taking money out of your pocket, you can get all of that back. So you add all of that up and you put that number here. Number four, no wages and tips. You can leave that blank because that doesn't apply. And then number five, these are all zeros and zeros. And then we'll scroll down more. Total Social Security, again, zero. Because again, remember, none of this applies because you do not actually have a business according to the tax law. But there are two or three lines that you need to pay attention of, which the first one was number three, right? Where you put the total of the taxes that you have already paid that you're going to get returned. And then from there, everything is 0, 0, 6 is 0, 7 is 0, 8 is 0, 9 is 0, 10 is 0, 11 is 0, 12 is 0. Again, we're not taking any tax, it doesn't apply, so there's no taxes to be applied, and since there's no taxes, there's no deductions necessary or adjustments either. So 12 is zero, and then 13 again is the total amount of deposits this quarter that you've made on the taxes. If you haven't paid taxes yet, then you don't put it, then you put zero here because you haven't paid them, so you can't get it back. But if you've already paid taxes this semester, then you can put that total amount again. 13, the same number that was in 3 is normally what goes in here, is what should go in here. So then number 14, balance due, you're not going to have a balance because again, you don't have taxable wages, overpayment for the taxes that you have paid before you knew before you learned that the taxes do not apply to you. That's what you would put here, which again is the same number as 13, the same number as 3 should be, right? If everything's correct and you will have absolutely no income from any government source at any level in your business, then this is zero, and you're going to check send a refund because you're going to get a refund that you're not applying to a next return because there isn't going to be a next return. Okay, so we're going to keep scrolling. Part two, or well, here you have to sign your name and again the employee identification number just so they can identify you, and then tell us about your deposit schedule and tax liability. If this is your first time filing, or if you're anything other than a quarterly filer, you would you check here because it's less than 2,500. And just if you haven't filed before or you are used to doing quarterly, you just check this first one. If you're a monthly scheduler, the entire previous quarter or this entire quarter, then you would do that here. If you are a semi-weekly depositor, you would do that here and you would attach the form, the appropriate schedule B, right? Which most in cases isn't going to apply to anybody here. For most people, it's going to apply. Just check this one because you've earned less than $2,500. And because again, you've learned none in taxable income because you're not working with the government. So moving forward. Part three, tell us about your business. If a question does not apply to your business, leave it blank. Again, business, according to the tax code, means the performance of public function, right? Or blank. So this all stays blank. Part four, may we speak with your third party designee. If you decide to have us prepare your taxes for you, we can absolutely have them. You just put our name there, our phone number, of course, you want to let us know, and the 5-digit number that pin here that would be so they can identify us when they give us a call. If you're not, if you're going to do it yourself, which you absolutely can, you can hit no. One reason you may want to consider having us do them for you is because 95% of the returns come back go through perfectly fine, but every now and then an occasional agent will want to try to act tough and threaten a frivolous filing fine or some kind of or jail time. But don't worry because it's all just hot air because they have no legal foundation, and so at the end of the day they may try to delay the payment, but either way at the end of the day they end up paying anyway. But if you don't want to deal with that, you can have us do it by having us file your taxes for you, and that service of representation is also included. Now, going forth, sign here. Now, you know what's an interesting thing that I just want to point out is it says here under penalties of perjury, but yet they don't tell you the information that what this actually applies to, and they don't tell you that these words have specific custom definitions. So, but don't worry about that because what we're doing is actually applying the tax law correctly and legally as it should be. So you would sign your name here, print your name here, title your title here, the date, the phone number, etc. If you're gonna have us do it, we would put our information here as far as sorry about that. As far as the name, have our information here, and then that would be it as far as this section because you won't need this last part because at the very bottom is this voucher, but again you're not making a payment, you're requesting a return, and so you won't need that part and the instructions. You can go through that if you desire to, but you don't really need to. And that's why this is congratulations, this is the first part. Go ahead and get your taxes, go ahead and get your form 941 so you can get that filled out for you. Go back and follow through with this video and get that done, or you can have us do it for you. And if not, well, either way, we're going to see you on the next video, which is going to be the Form 1065. So we'll see you there.